Throughout this information podcast, we will be discussing how the deaths of Giovanni Falcone and Paolo Borsellino triggered the anti-mafia movement in Sicily.
There are two dates which will always be remembered throughout Sicilian history. These dates are the 23rd of May 1992, after the death of Giovanni Falcone, and the 19th of July 1992, following the death of Paolo Borsellino, just 57 days after the death of his friend and colleague. These deaths were so prominent due to the heartache that was created through the death of two of their leading magistrates, who were working on change for the Sicilian people. They were fighting for a safer Sicily in relation to mafia activities that were rife at the time. Falcone and Borsellino were connected to the anti-mafia pool, which later laid the groundwork for the Maxi trial. The Maxi trial began on the 10th of February 1986 and was finally concluded on the 16th of December 1987. These trials were iconic in the history of the fight against the mafia due to the mass amount of number of mafiosi sentenced following the end of the trial. As a result of their gallant efforts from working against the mafia, Sicily will always remember them. From their deaths, they were both awarded La Medaglia d'Oro al Valor Civile, also known as the Gold Medal for Civil Valour. The death of these two iconic men have paved the way for the growth of the anti-mafia movement in Sicily, shaping society around this new thinking that one can actually speak out against the mafia and be able to walk away with your life. In life, these two men achieved a lot for Sicily, yet their deaths saw the changes that they had been longing for so long.
According to the author Umberto Santino, the anti-mafia movement began in the 19th century as a small participated movement. Today we are witness to an advanced anti-racket system and the implementation of anti-mafia ideologies into the education system. The anti-mafia movement may have been existent before the deaths of Falcone and Borsellino. However, their sacrifices created the catalyst needed for the anti-mafia movement to develop into a fully fledged organisation. From the visit of our anti-mafia buildings and organisations in Sicily, we became witness to the declaration of symbolism which Falcone and Borsellino have become for these groups. Being part of an anti-mafia organisation is voluntary, and it was evident that all of those who we met were passionate about transforming the stereotypical idea that all Sicilians were members of the mafia. As one Sicilian woman told us on our trip to the Anti-Mafia Museum in Corleone, "Vorrei vedessi la Sicilia attraverso I miei occhi quelli di un'onesta siciliana," which translates to, "I want you to see Sicily through my eyes, an honest Sicilian." Falcone and Borsellino were prominent in their arguments. For example, our guide Stefano expressed that "Non il avete uccisi le loro idee camminano sulle nostre gambe." You did not kill them, as their ideas walk with our legs. This now leads us on to an interview conducted with Stefano, a member of the Addio Pizza organisation. If Falcone and Borsellino hadn't been killed, would the anti-mafia movement hold as much influence as it does today?
The anti-mafia movement, and he would have had the same influence, but I think their death moved something a little bit more than it could be if they weren't killed. Even stronger.
Did the changes in the judicial system and police force come as a result of the deaths of Falcone and Borsellino?
I think there was still, normally, there was an organization, how could we say, there was something like this, I think, even before. I'm not sure, but I think they were trying to do something, but before the Maxi trial, that was mainly realized by the influence of the two judges, Falcone and Borsellino, and other important magistrates that were killed as well. There wasn't the feeling that the fight to the mafia had to be stronger. I don't know if it's because if you have to think that the Maxi trial was the first real trial to the mafia, because before the trial that happened in the past didn't end with the accusation of a single mafioso, and that trial especially finished with more than 400 people to go to jail for life imprisonment condition. And they started because Falcone we have to think that even before, Falcone and Borsellino created the pool, the anti-mafia pool. There was a group of magister who wanted to share pieces of information about the mafia, because they wanted to understand a little bit more how it was organized. And with the Maxi trial, they had a clear view about the structure and the hierarchical structure of the mafia.
The deaths of Falcone and Borsellino led to the police intensifying their protection levels. The police system rapidly implemented changes in order to increase the security levels against the mafiosi. Within 12 months, new legislation was in place in vital areas of witness protection and seizure of criminal profits. Law enforcement capabilities had been strengthened. The new investigative police and judicial services were functioning, and 19 of the 30 most wanted criminal fugitives had been arrested. This was an enormous victory for the police system and was a direct result of the deaths of Falcone and Borsellino. Many years on, some still believe that the 1992 murders marked the beginning of the end for the Cosa Nostra and a turning point in the nation's consciousness. As a result of the murders, the police and judicial systems were able to implement new measures to protect the state against the corruption of the mafia. The police system attempted to control the mafia organisation from the inside, and anti-mafia measures were implemented which made it extremely difficult for the mafia bosses to control from within. It was near impossible for them to direct operations on the inside, as they had previously been able to do so before their deaths. As well as this, the police system increased the levels of protection for anyone who is threatened or at a high risk. After a meeting with the police and judicial system in Sicily, we were able to discuss the 4 levels of risk and security that were implemented as a new measure. As well as this, 1992 saw the full activation of the Direzione Investigative Antimafia, which conducted investigations in its role as judicial police. These are just a few examples of how the state attempted to implement new protection levels to protect anyone at risk from the mafia. This is all a result of the death of Falcone and Borsellino.
Due to the mafia's realisation that measures were being taken against their actions through the Supreme Court's decision to uphold the outcomes of the Maxi trials, Riina ordered the assassinations of Falcone and Borsellino. As a result of their deaths, Sicily showed great gratitude towards Falcone and Borsellino for the sacrifices that they made in the fight against the mafia. In honour of the 2 judges, many places around Palermo are dedicated to their memory, such as the 2 monuments on the motorway near Capaci and the naming of the Falcone-Borsellino airport. As previously mentioned, the 2 magistrates' deaths implemented a great change for the anti-mafia movement. Paolo Borsellino believed that the fight against the mafia must not be only called repressive action, but a moral and cultural movement involving everybody. This has been shown throughout the podcast as both civilians and the police force have united against the mafia. To conclude, the deaths of Falcone and Borsellino were important to the anti-mafia movement as they signified a turning point in the Sicilian fight against the mafia. As Giovanni Falcone stated, "My life is mapped out. It is my destiny to take a bullet by the mafia someday. The only thing is, I don't know when."